Well, folks, welcome back to the show. This is the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every day. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button, drop a like on the video, all that usual good stuff that we ask you to do as we continue to grow this great community here. I thought I'd jump on and do a quick video about this Marcus Rashford interview that he gave to the Players Tribune, causing a lot of furore today. Fan base up in arms, mixed kind of views, but the general consensus is they kind of feel a little bit let down by this interview. Timing is horrific, right on the eve of a Manchester derby this weekend coming up. Huge game for both clubs when you think about a City trying to chase down my own beloved Liverpool at the top of the league, and Man United trying to break into these European spots and lay down some foundation to go into the end of the season. Of course, we had the big news today that the quarter-final of the FA Cup has been rescheduled. It's the 17th of March at 3:30, Paddy's Day. Going to be absolutely phenomenal. Roughly 2 weeks from this weekend, hopefully we'll have a number of our key players back for that game, and hopefully United do as well, because we want to see two strong sides going at it. Old school English FA Cup tie, and let's see how we get on with that. Really looking forward to it. But let's get into this interview. We'll discuss some of the points that he spoke about. I think it's really important that we take things in context. But before I get into it, I'd say it's a kind of a weird one. Did the club give the go-ahead for this interview? He doesn't seem to be. He talks about how he represents Man United and all that kind of stuff, but he's not in any Man United clothing. There's no real Man United branding on it and all that kind of stuff. So this seemed like a shot from the bow here to put across a point. He obviously doesn't seem too happy with the criticism he's been receiving. There's a lot of stuff in the fan base about, like, you know, bugger off the PSG, we're done with you, we've checked out, all this kind of stuff. And like everyone, they read social media the same as anyone else, and when they hear these things, they want to react to them. So he started off with the interview. He says, listen, I'm not a perfect person. We know that no one is. He says, when I make a mistake, I'll be the first one to put my hand up and say that I need to do better, he said. But if you ever question my commitment to Man United, that's when I have to speak up. So he's obviously very upset about the communications and the conversations going on at the moment, that, you know, potentially going at the end of the season. They want rid of him. Now is the time to cash in. His form has been really, really poor. The one thing I would say about him, I mean, he is Man United through and through. Came up all the way through the academy as a kid and all that kind of stuff. I think it was Van Gaal who gave him his debut and all that kind of stuff. But the problem that you have with Marcus Rashford is, and you know, you'll see when it goes down through the interview as well, you know, with great riches comes great responsibility. You know, and he touches as well on the off-field stuff and all that, and he's to be highly commended for that kind of stuff. You know, it was really, really warranted and needed at a time, and he stepped up. He was the guy who stepped up and did it, and everyone has heaped praise on him about that. But, as most people would say, first and foremost, your job is as a professional footballer at Man United. And when that's not going too well, do people look to these other things potentially as distractions? And are these things distracting him from what his job is? And if you're a Man United football fan, do you really care enough about that off-field stuff? You know, to this point where you talk about his form on the pitch and all that kind of stuff. So a little bit strange in terms of that and stuff like that. So he is a little bit concerned about the reaction out there, and, you know, people, you know, questioning his commitment to Man United and all that, which wouldn't sit well with him, you know. He says, it's like somebody questioning my entire identity and everything I stand for as a man. I grew up here. I've played for this club since I was a boy. My family turned down life-changing money when I was a kid so I could wear this badge. Probably where you find yourself now. You know, you're probably the highest paid player at Man United. You're Mr. Man United. You're the guy that all these youths and kids and everything look to. You're the beacon, you're the icon, you're all that kind of stuff. You give hope to the kids on the street who kick football that one day they could live their dream and play for Man United. And when you're not performing to the level that you should perform, questions will get asked. And I think it's a little bit concerning from that point of view when you look at how he comes across and stuff like that. He's obviously very sensitive to this situation. But, you know, as I said already, with great rewards and great riches comes huge responsibility. And you have to step up for that. My one concern about Marcus Rashford is, at the time when the captaincy was being changed, I would have thought he should have been the guy to step up and take that. I don't necessarily think it should have went to Bruno. I think if you're going to put the captaincy on someone, you need that Man United DNA in there, that understanding and all that kind of stuff. And he should have been forceful in that. And that says a lot about a guy's character if he didn't try and push that through, which for me would be a little bit concerning. Because I think realistically, Marcus Rashford, when he's playing really, really well and he's focused and he's not going through an awful lot of stuff, or, you know, he's not having mental issues with this kind of stuff that's going on, stuff that, I think he's the guy who should be captain. I don't think Bruno should be captain. Because I look at Bruno Fernandes and there's a lot of things within Bruno as well. And some of this stuff is in Marcus as well. But some of that stuff I see in Bruno, I don't associate with the DNA of being a captain of Manchester United. He also talks about it, you know, he talks about questioning his identity and stuff that. He spoke in the interview as well about, like, you know, the press talk about Marcus Rashford as if he's this character. You know, he's playing the Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea kind of card here and stuff like that, you know. He says, the stuff that gets written about me, 90% of it is false. The problem is when people start to believe them. That for me is an interesting one, because I think some of the things that people identify with Marcus, I don't necessarily think they're false. You did park your car up on a curb, you did get a ticket, you did go to Belfast and you did party and you weren't supposed to. So if you're coming on here playing this Why Always Me card, this Balotelli shirt kind of thing, you can forget about that. You're not going to get that at this level. You're just not going to get it. He says, speaking about the media coverage in recent months, he added, I'm not trying to have a go at the media. I understand the game. You know what I mean. They're not really writing about me. It's like they're writing about this character, Marcus Rashford. Well, newsflash for you, pal. They are exactly writing about you. And I'd love to get a breakdown of the 90% of the stuff that's being written in the media that is false, as opposed to the 10% that's true. Because a lot of what this is coming from, it's coming from questioning the commitment of him with the club. This guy's going to Belfast and he's partying. Forget about parking the car and getting the ticket. That's just someone being foolish. You know what I mean? But I'd like to know what else is being said. You know, is there a potential, you know, is he talking about the links away from the club and all that kind of stuff? And if he is, stories have gone out and have already gone out in the past. This is not the first time Marcus Rashford has been linked with a move away from Man United. And some of it comes from his own PR people, not just him. It can't just be about a 26-year-old lad on a night out or a lad getting a parking ticket. It's got to be about how much my car costs, guessing my weekly salary, my jewellery or even my tattoos. I want to explain again to you, as Marcus Rashford, who has come up through all the stages of Manchester United, there is an onus on you, 24/7, highly paid athlete, to represent Manchester United as a club. That bastion of football, as they talk about. You know, we heard it from Shankly with Liverpool. United is that way in Manchester. So he has to represent the club at a certain level. And if he doesn't represent at that level, then you end up with a problem. And a lot of people feel let down. When you park your car the way you parked your car and you get a ticket, people look at the car that you have and they think, this is a guy who doesn't give a shit and thinks he can do whatever he wants. And that's a reasonable assumption to make when a foolish decision like that is made. So it's not unusual. The same thing if you're flying on a private jet to party in Belfast for 2 days without the club knowing when you should be resting or training or whatever it is. That flies in the face of the club and lets the club down from every point, really, when you think about it. Not just any point, you know what I mean? You're seen as Mr. Manchester United. You have to carry that badge. And because you're Mr. Manchester United in that team and you've come up through every layer of Manchester United, you've seen it all. You've mixed with the greats. You've seen them all there and what they've thought of you and how they've put you up on this pedestal. There's an expectation that you're the guy that sets the level, that you're the guy that raises the bar, that you're the guy that shows all those other younger players in the team, this is what Man United are about. This is how we're supposed to behave. This is such a weird interview, and the timing of it is crazy as well. This kind of reminds me of the MUTV interview with Roy Keane that never aired kind of thing. But this is you know, it's crazy, you know what I mean? And talking about the salary and the jewellery, that all comes into it, because if you look at the normal football fan out there who's earning whatever it is, 20, 30, 40 grand a year or whatever it is, those guys would give their right arm to put on that jersey and walk through that Old Trafford tunnel to represent Man United in a match. And this is, you know, this is the way this is always viewed. It's got to be about my body language and questioning my morals and speculating about my family and my football future. There's a tone to it that you don't get with all footballers. Let's just leave it at that. If you walk out onto the pitch and your body language and your facials are shit, you're going to be questioned, aren't you? Let's be honest. And his body language and his facials has been horrific now for over a year. It's since last February of last year that he had this massive drop off. He was absolutely flying up till that point. And if there's personal stuff going on, they shouldn't delve into that. That should be kept private and kept personal and be dealt with on the full support of the club. And, you know, these things should be identified if that stuff is going on. It's not nice if it's written in the papers. And I can understand that. I think some of it goes back to the pandemic, he added. I was just trying to use my voice to make sure that kids weren't going hungry, because I know exactly how it feels. You shouldn't really play that card, because really we all know about that work that you did in the pandemic. You did an unbelievable job, heaps of praise on you, and fair play to you for doing it. It was unbelievable what you did. Okay, but you don't really need to bring that into this, because no one's judging you based on that. They're judging you based on what they're seeing on a pitch at the moment, and what they're seeing on a pitch at the moment is poor body language, really poor play, not acting like a leader on the pitch, playing really, really at a much lower level than you should. And that's what this is all coming from. And then people in this whirlwind of football that we deal with, media and everything else, are looking at this situation going, this is the guy who's buggering off partying to Belfast for 2 days. And then he rocks up here on a pitch and he can't kick snow off a rope. So this is like, you know, this is where they're coming from. No one's questioning the work you did during the pandemic. That was unbelievable and amazing. For some reason, that seemed to rub certain people the wrong way. It seems like they've been waiting for me to have a human moment so they can point the finger and say, see who he really is. I don't think that's the case at all. I think what people are saying is your job now as a professional footballer is to perform for Man United, and that's where your emphasis and your focus should be. And I don't think that's an unreasonable request. What else are we talking about here? I promise you the world has not seen the best of this Man United squad and these players, he said. That's been going on for a decade. That doesn't need any elaboration, does it really, in fairness? We want to be back playing in the Champions League. You got knocked out. Then we have a massive international tournament at the end of the season. We will be back where we belong. We just have to keep working, and that starts with me. Okay, well, we've heard these conversations before. We just have to keep working, and that starts with me. So, over the last year, when is it going to start with you? Because people, this is not, the people who are seeing this on the pitch and what's transforming out onto the pitch are not seeing these conversations. These conversations that are being had are not relating out to what we're seeing actually physically on the pitch. So how do we fix that? If you back me, good, and if you doubt me, even better. So he's inciting the doubters. So he's saying, if you doubt me, even better. So he's asking for people to doubt him. So he's gone on this whole tirade of why he shouldn't be getting questioned and why he shouldn't be doing this and shouldn't be doing that and all the other. And then he says, go ahead and doubt me, even better. You know, clearly you're not enjoying this atmosphere in which the conversation of Marcus Rashford happens. And the only way you fix that is on the pitch. So remember that. That's so important, you know. And again, I talk about these things. I spoke about Jadon Sancho and stuff like that. I often talk on the podcast about footballers' mental health and these young kids and the riches that are being thrown at them and how they're not being managed and they go off the rails and all this kind of stuff. The stuff that he talks about, remember, they're his tattoos. It's his jewellery. It's his cars. You know what I mean? It's him going out partying. It's him thinking he can do what he wants and park his car wherever he wants. This is just him not being happy that he has now become the topic of conversation and the target within the fan base, and he's reacting to that now. But that last line is telling. If you back me, good, and if you doubt me, even better. let's see what happens. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Marcus Rashford's interview with the Players Tribune, sure to create a lot of controversy and a lot of conversation. Really ill-timed. Wonder what the reaction will be from the club, and especially for Ten Hag at the moment, who's under an awful lot of pressure at the moment. His protection of Bruno yesterday in the presser was just, it was absolutely disgusting. And talking about Fulham and all, putting out a TikTok, it's unbelievable at that level that you would even focus on that as opposed to what needs to be focused on, which is getting Man United playing really, really well, winning games, putting points on the board, moving up the table and getting a bit of consistency in what they're doing. And I think that's really what should be important, not whether Fulham are putting a TikTok out or not. And listen, this is me as a Liverpool fan. I'm talking this way because if this was Jurgen Klopp and this was Liverpool and a player did an interview like that, I would be absolutely going ballistic. I'll leave it there with you folks. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, subscribe to the channel, the upper tier, hit the bell notification button, drop a like in the video, and of course don't forget Spotify. Go over there, the audio show's out the following day that the show goes out on YouTube, so let us know, give your love out there on Spotify as well. I will be back this evening with a live show, probably around 7:30, where we will be previewing the Nottingham Forest game. Going to be a tough one for the Reds this weekend, still a lot of players out, but a huge game. Got to put the 3 points on the board. Points over performance at this time of the season, as always. Cheers, folks.